eyes on Fort Pierce, Florida, where right now former President Donald Trump is there in court for a hearing in his classified documents case. Supporters outside there waving their Trump flags. Now, what's important here is the judge could push back that May trial date. So we'll be watching closely for any scheduling changes, and we'll bring you any updates from the courtroom as we get them. But we're going to turn now to another courtroom, this time in Georgia, where we could have a decision soon on whether Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis will stay in charge of the Georgia case against former President Trump. And the closing arguments are set to get underway in just a couple of hours on the motion to dismiss Willis over the allegations that she had an inappropriate relationship with her special prosecutor in this case, Nathan Wade. Let's bring in MSNBC's Katie Phang outside that court in Atlanta, and Lisa Rubin and Christy Greenberg are back with us. So, Katie, closing arguments today. What can we expect?
Yeah, so it ended up being a mini trial within a trial that hasn't even been scheduled yet here in Fulton County. The evidentiary hearing, the evidence was closed earlier this week when Terrence Bradley, the former divorce attorney for Nathan Wade, took the stand for the second time. But he didn't deliver anything for the defense. And so today, the attorneys on both sides come to court to convince Judge Scott McAfee that their side is right. As a reminder, in Georgia, the law says that in order to disqualify a prosecutor, there has to be an actual conflict of interest. And so each side will get the chance today to explain to the court why the evidence, or perhaps the lack of evidence, supports the idea that disqualification should occur in this case. But as of right now, we don't expect to have any witnesses testify, although the issue of Nathan Wade's cell phone records may end up being perhaps a reopening of the evidence if the judge believes that he needs to hear from the gentleman, the private investigator who did the affidavit for those cell phone records.
Okay, it is a rainy day there in Atlanta, Katie. Thanks for the reporting on what we can expect. Lisa, there are new text messages just obtained by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution as well as the New York Times that really kind of show us how this whole motion and effort to dismiss Willis developed. What can you tell us?
You know, I was not aware that there was new reporting this morning. I can tell you, based on what I understand of the text messages to begin with, one of the things that Terrence Bradley never adequately answered is why he did this in the first place. Why did he communicate with Ashley Merchant, who's Mike Roman's lawyer, as she was trying to develop information about the relationship between Willis and Wade when he was on the stand both last week and then again this week? He never really explained himself. Katie has referred to him somewhat jokingly as a yenta. He clearly was a person who enjoyed that gossip. But as a person who had been Nathan Wade, former divorce attorney, and his former law partner, left that law firm somewhat acrimoniously after being accused of sexual assault of an employee, it's not clear whether he was telling the truth then or is telling the truth now. But both cannot be true. He was extraordinarily evasive on the stand about why he even engaged with Ashley Merchant in the first place.
Katie, the then versus now, what are in those text messages?
413 text messages between Terrence Bradley and the defense attorney for Michael Roman, Ashley Merchant, beginning in September of 2023 up until only about 2 weeks ago. And so Terrence Bradley, in those text messages, calling Merchant his friend and actually disparaging Wade and Willis and purportedly providing all of this damaging information. However, when the moment of truth came in court under oath, Terrence Bradley said that it was just mere speculation on his part, the idea that he was sharing idle gossip about Wade and Willis. And so the judge in this case, because he is the fact finder, Anna, has to determine the credibility of Terrence Bradley as well as all of the witnesses, including Fani Willis and Nathan Wade. And so that'll be a written order from Judge McAfee. Do not expect him to rule from the bench today. He'll issue a written order, but very quickly, because this case, although it's still proceeding in terms of hearings, etc., still doesn't have a trial date, and we need to know who's going to be the prosecutor.
That's right. And Christy, just how damning are these text messages? And based on what you've seen, will Fani Willis stay on this case?
So I think the text messages are very definitive. Where he said on the stand, well, I'm speculating, he's actually very clear in the messages. Did the relationship begin before Fonnie Willis hired Nathan Wade? He said absolutely. And then he gave a date as to when. He gave specific information. And then
He said it was even before Willis became the DA of Fulton County,
yes,
dating back to the year 2020.
And he was in a position to know. He was Nathan Wade's lawyer and law partner. So it's not clear he was hearing this speculating from other people. He was right there in the office. And there were also very specific exchanges between Ashley Merchant and Terrence Bradley on the stand, where information that he had been communicating to her, again, very detailed, very specific, and then all of a sudden he's on the stand, he can't remember anything. So I think the judge is likely to find he was not credible on the stand and credit those text messages more, particularly because of the phone records. The phone records are damning. We haven't seen all of them, but there have been references in Trump's filings to them. There are text messages and there are calls that show that Fonnie Willis and Nathan Wade were communicating prior to her hiring him in 2021 at all hours of the night, midnight, 4 a.m. text messages. You know, just based on the frequency of those communications and the timing of those communications strongly suggests here that they had a relationship before she hired him. And that raises the question of perjury. And again, I don't think there's been any evidence that she financially profited from hiring Nathan Wade, and that would have been the thing that would disqualify her. But if they perjured themselves on the stand, it's hard to see how they can stay on the case.
We'll see where this goes, guys. Got to leave it there.